A man accused of stabbing his roommate to death said he was the victim of a conspiracy led by Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau, who is the father of Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. So, the courts of assize or assizes were periodic courts held around England and Wales until 1972, when, together with the quarter sessions, they were abolished by the Courts Act of 1971 and replaced by a single permanent Crown Court. An assize court was a jury found John O'Brien, a mental patient since 1973, unfit to stand trial for the murder of Gerald Kahanovitch, who was stabbed 33 times on July 7th, 1982. So, this is what the guy was claiming, basically. He says that for a period of approximately 9 years, I have been relentlessly pursued by Pierre Elliott Trudeau and his henchmen. He said Trudeau tried to kill me on 5 occasions. So O'Brien said Kahanovitch, 29, also a former mental patient, was in league with Trudeau and had sprayed the walls with poison in the bathroom of a downtown apartment shared by the two men. So O'Brien, who's 40, was institutionalized in 1979 after he faked a convenience store robbery in order to be jailed and escape the imagined conspiracy. Okay, so let's unpack this one. So this guy's got some mental health issues, and he feels that the former Prime Minister, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, is on his ass, and he's sending assassins and woo-assassins and all types of operatives on him, and the roommate's in league with Pierre, and he says, yo, fuck this, I got the chess move. I'm gonna fake robbing Aki at the bodega. So when the boys come and pick me up, I can't be touched by Pierre. I'm good. No harm, no foul. So he goes to the convenience store, sticks it up. The guy's like, yo, I'm giving it up. What are you doing? Yeah, you're going to give it up. Just hold on. Hold on. You know, and I guess he sat there till he got nabbed up. And so he was ultimately found not criminally responsible for killing his roommates 20 years prior. You know, he had these delusions that Pierre Trudeau was out to get him. So John Francis O'Brien was then 60 years of age. And the actions of John Francis O'Brien constituted second-degree murder, but, you know, when he stabbed the roommate. But the judge felt he was not responsible because of mental illness. And, you know, he had stated that Bob Dylan's lyrics ordered him to kill. So, in the 1982 death of Gerald Kahanovitch, Mr. O'Brien, a former mental patient, had been deemed fit to stand trial by 2002. His doctor said he made a remarkable recovery after Pierre Elliott Trudeau died. So there was some logic to the delusion, because he couldn't really, how's he still after me? The man is dead, like, you know. So it was like, all right, it's over. And everybody's like, okay, well, let's put you to trial for this body now. So it's many years later, but similarities could be drawn in the case of Steve Sims, who randomly attacked his caretaker, slicing open his stomach and nearly killing him in 1999. So Steve was suffering many delusions, including a belief that he was a pro golfer, Tiger Woods. So he's just said, look, I'm Tiger Woods. And I don't know what the caretaker did, but he just gutted the man and said, I'm Tiger Woods. So he apparently believed the landlord was part of a large murder conspiracy against him. And he was subsequently diagnosed as a paranoid schizophrenic. So he said, look, I'm Tiger Woods. These guys are out to kill me. I got to deal with this. So these both appear to be clear-cut examples of individuals who took someone's life in a heinous and violent murder or committed a violent act that could have easily resulted in death, yet society has understood the excuse and deemed the man not criminally responsible, as the legislation intended. The man was severely mentally ill and likely not in touch with the collective reality as we see it, suffering from decades of paranoid delusions. So O'Brien and Sims were extremely paranoid to a point that logic no longer factored as heavily as one would normally expect into their overall general perception. Textbook symptoms of schizophrenia, an incurable mental illness that can be effectively treated with antipsychotic medications. These mentally ill offenders are ultimately committed to psychiatric institutions for most of their lives. One such other example was Ron. Ron was born in Winnipeg. He grew up in East Kildonan. He graduated from Miles Macdonald Collegiate in 1973. In junior and senior high, he and his huge group of friends gathered at Matt's restaurant on Henderson Highway and named their group of friends Matt's Maulers. He was a charismatic guy. He took a great care of his appearance. Everyone recognized him. After high school, he worked for Canada Post. He was hardworking, a disciplined guy, and was one of the first of his friends to own his own home. So Ron was an active guy, enjoyed playing fastball, often as a pitcher in the EK Fastball League and in the Winnipeg Fastball League. He played hockey as well, played Canada Post tournaments in cities across Canada. So Ron had lots of interests. He loved hunting, fishing with his brothers, his friends and nephews. Ron also loved cars. He would often be found cruising around with the top down in his 68 Camaro and raced it at the Ginley Strip. You know, sweet ride. He got his old day and affectionately named the 54 Chevy Black Dragon. So, you know, 54, it's a big body, you know, old. You call that the Black Dragon. So he really loved and respected his family. He loved and missed his father when he died, and that happened when he was still in high school, and he could often still be found visiting his father's grave. He always found time to visit his mom right up until his last day, and could often still be found visiting. He was proud of his daughter, Ferris, and her 2 children. He loved them unconditionally. He lived to look after her. His close friends and people he would meet in his daily travels were able to see the real Ron despite his illness. He was loved and he will be missed. So, what's going on with Ron? Well, Ronald Bobbie, he had set a $400,000 fire at a city bank in 2001. Why? Well, he had stopped taking his medication for mental illness. So Ronald Bobbie had suffered from bipolar disorder since 1984, had been hospitalized and released on 70 occasions since. That illness causes grandiose delusions, insomnia, and a short fuse, which led to several prior brushes with the law, court was told. So Ronald Bobbie was pronounced dead at hospital after being found in the Red River on September 2014. When Ferris Bobbie thinks about her father, Ronald, she remembers a caring, kind, and energetic man, not a psychiatric patient. He loved me more than life itself, more than anybody, she said. But Ferris Bobbie, which is the daughter, says an inquest into the 59-year-old's death saw her father only as an illness, and it misused an opportunity to make real change at the Selkirk Mental Health Centre. So what's going on here? There's this guy, he grew up in EK, sportsman, into his classic cars, family man, loved his dad, loved his kids, visited his mom till the day he died, even though, you know, he was at that point at, the Selkirk mental facility because he had set a fire at Citibank when he went off his medication. So he's in the mental hospital, and next thing you know, he turns up deceased in the Red River. What's going on here? what happened to this guy? So the inquest looked into the drowning death of Ronald Bobbie when he was an involuntary resident at the psychiatric facility in Selkirk, Manitoba. He had been a patient at the center for 12 years after he was found not criminally responsible for arson offenses, which when he disappeared from the unit, he later drowned in the Red River, just north of Redwood Bridge in Winnipeg, and that was in 2014. So the provincial court judge Lindy Troy, who was in charge of reviewing the evidence, said evidence at the inquest gave no indication that any inappropriate decisions were made at the time of Ronald Bobbie's death. Troy's one recommendation was that nursing staff should be equipped to enable effective monitoring of patients' ingress and egress. While Troy didn't give specifics, she wrote, that could include physical changes to the ward, an increase in staffing, or both. That hasn't brought any healing to his family and won't tackle the issues that led to his death, the daughter said. He was just an illness. That's pretty much all I got out of that inquest, was that he was an illness, and that was created, and it based everything on that. So she said, I didn't find anything about how he cared about his daughter. He always wanted to be with his daughter. Like, nothing like that. Nothing that the hospital did anything wrong. So, she felt like changes needed to be made. And, the courts and the hospital kind of said, it's not on us. Sorry, about your father's passing, but we're not responsible. So Ronald Bobbie was diagnosed with rapid cycling bipolar disorder, but the inquest report said there was no indication that he was a risk to himself or the public. So the report said in early 2014 he was doing better overall. His treatment team were hoping to move towards reintegrating him into the community. The discussions contemplated having him live in Winnipeg or with the daughter in Dauphin, Manitoba. So the daughter, Ferris Bobbie, said she was in conversations about how to take steps to take care of her father, but nothing seemed to be happening. It was frustrating to her, other families, and for her dad. So, some people would say, well, obviously he loved you, you loved him. Were you able to kind of take care of him? She's like, I was trying to. It just we couldn't get it like in time. She said, I could have done a better job if they would have let me. And it hurt because I have to live with the fact that I first thought, what could I have done better? What could I have done better to get my dad out of there? Ferris Bobbie said. But it's nothing I could have done because he wasn't in my custody. So she's saying, like, I would have took care of him. I would have kept an eye on him. I did everything I could. I'm even questioning myself, but I trusted you guys with my dad to take care of him, or I would have just did it. So as Ronald Bobbie's condition improved, he was granted more privileges and would go to visit his family. Sometimes he would leave to visit his family even if he wasn't granted the day passes. The inquest also heard that Ronald Bobbie had disagreements over his treatment plan and wasn't going to therapy, instead going to visit with his family. That meant his privileges to see his family were revoked. So they said, look, Ronnie, you gotta do your therapy. I know, family first, but if you're not gonna do your therapy, then no, you're not gonna see your family. So here's the carrot, this the stick. Stick, therapy. Carrot, family. Like, let's sit down, let's talk. Like, we know you're bipolar. So he couldn't visit the daughter. His condition would worsen and he'd get depressed. To take off and just to go see his daughter and be punished, it broke his heart. And, then it was longer. He had to wait longer to see the daughter. And so the inquest looked into, well, should patients get passes to leave the facility? But the daughter says that's not the issue with her father. Her concern is that passes were used as leverage and it was detrimental to his recovery. So, she's highly critical of the facility and the practices. She said during the inquest she voiced those concerns as well as others surrounding how much medication he was on, whether there were too many patients, and communication with his treatment team. But Troy the Justice Choi wrote in the report that she couldn't look at those concerns, only the issues of the passes. The family's frustration with the withholding of privileges for the purposes of controlling behavior is certainly understandable, but I view this as a necessary aspect of his treatment plan, Choi wrote. Ferris Bobbie said she feels like she wasn't heard and the inquest just prolonged her family's grieving. I think a lot of patients aren't being heard, and I don't think a lot of families are being heard, and I really don't think there's enough being done for patients at the hospital, she said. Most of her life was, her father was institutionalized, and she questions whether that was even the right decision. And you know what, dear? I'm going to have to interject a little bit here. Like, your dad tried to burn down Citibank, okay? Like, he wasn't well. He was in a mental hospital for like 12 years. I know you're trying to take care of him, get him up to Dauphin, but like, what do you want? Like, what's to be done? You're acting like, they just plucked him out of the street and stuffed him in there. Like, no, he tried to burn the bank down. He went off his meds, and he needed to be monitored for his safety and for the safety of the public. So, she said, it bothers me sometimes that someone who can kill someone with their own hands can be released, but I had to watch my dad pretty much through glass, sometimes in a room for years. And she said the inquest is done, and the daughter's disappointed and doesn't expect much to change, but now she wants to make sure her children learn about her grandfather, who he was as a man and father, not as a psychiatric patient. She said, my kids won't have a grandpa, and I won't have a dad to be by my side, she said. He was my best friend, too. He always listened, he didn't interrupt, he didn't judge me. I could always open up to him about things. So, a daddy's girl, it's tough. Dad had issues. He's deceased. He ended up drowning. And she wants answers. She doesn't feel like she got them. She wants changes. She doesn't feel like she saw them. So it would seem that this was another individual who is suitable to be remanded to a psychiatric facility as opposed to a provincial or federal prison. It is difficult for the children of incarcerated individuals. Being a prisoner is never easy for the family. The deeper issue appears to be this is a multifaceted issue. Firstly, there are many people who don't believe in early release of those who have been found not criminally responsible. Once one prisoner is freed, all the other prisoners' families are going to want their loved ones to be freed as well. Secondly, in the event that an inmate is truly rehabilitated, they will find people skeptical of whether or not they ever truly were mentally ill enough to be deemed not criminally responsible to begin with. There is also the matter of what to do with those whom are undeniably mentally ill and will never be fully rehabilitated. Ron's daughter just wanted her father to have a normal life. Unfortunately, she may not have been completely realistic about whether or not she was actually equipped to look after her father. If a mental hospital full of staff couldn't prevent her father from taking his own life, what's to say that him being allowed to live in her home would have guaranteed any difference of an outcome? The only person Ron ever killed was himself, despite his dangerous actions could have easily cost the life of someone else. In comparison to John O'Brien, who violently murdered a man, his steadfast belief that he was a victim, that his victim, was an emissary of Pierre Elliott Trudeau, made him remorseless in the killing, which he felt Bob Dylan's lyrics had prompted and instructed. An explanation so fantastical that it could only serve as proof of delusional paranoid schizophrenia. He never lived an actual life. That was robbed from him when his brain betrayed him at a young age and he simply withdrew from the collective reality that he no longer wanted any further part of. He subsequently robbed someone else of their life. The systems in place seemed to manage John O'Brien and Steve Sims effectively. Ronald Bobbie, it seemed, fell through many cracks in the system. The question many have is, does the system actually have the capacity to keep the public and the patient safe? It did sound like the patients could escape pretty easily. When the offender isn't simply seeking an excuse to escape provincial and federal prison, is the system even actually equipped to handle them? it did a poor job of handling Ron Bobbie. When the question no longer is a matter of, are they really mentally ill? Society is faced with a question of which is worse. When someone is released, the presumption is, well, they were just faking it. If they were faking it, the presumption is they are unreformed. What about when they aren't faking anything, and as such can never be released? Many of them all locked away for life, but is that even feasible or realistic? These are nurses, not correctional officers. Perhaps that's the problem. Hospitals lack teeth. Perhaps even the more secured facilities aren't that secure. As the goal of the facility staff is integration back into regular society, which always remains a dichotomy weighed against the public's goal of being safe. What's safer to society than keeping these patients caged? What's safer for them? The hospital really shouldn't be the same as the halfway house. Most, if not all, of the patients are dangerous, if not to others, then themselves. When a patient escapes and commits suicide, the hospital is more concerned with being sued and protecting their liabilities than improving patient safety. They simply hope for enough overlap between the two. Winnipegology.